In this session, we will discuss Helen Keller's essay, How I Became a Socialist. Before moving into the text, you should be familiarized with certain concepts, certain ideas in connection with the chapter. First of which is agency. Agency is a capacity of a thing or a person to act from its own or their own capacity. In short, agency is a power of a person to act independently. Next, the use of I in the subject position. Such a use is very important here because Helen Keller, as all of you know, she is blind and deaf, and therefore the society considers her to be dependent upon someone else. In this chapter, you will also know how did Helen Keller become a socialist. Also, how Keller reacts to some of the criticism appeared on the capitalist newspapers against her. Socialism is the idea that envisages a society where the binary between upper class and lower class, or haves and have not, disappears. Keller begins her essay saying that for so many months her name and the word socialism appeared together in newspaper, and a friend tells her that Helen Keller shares the newspaper columns with baseball, Mr. Roosevelt, and also the New York police scandals. Keller says that she felt so happy not because her name has been printed on the newspaper, but because of the fact that many people are interested in her and also her teacher, Anne Sullivan, and her teaching method. We have also learned it in our school days. She also felt very happy because the word socialism is brought to the frontier by this newspaper, though for criticizing. She says she has a dream to write about socialism in the future. However, she has not written anything very important about the topic until then, except a few letters, and one of them was to Mr. Warren, Comrade Warren. She couldn't even go to Schenectady, and also she didn't meet Mayor Lunn. He is also a socialist leader. She didn't even receive a letter from Mr. Lunn. However, Mr. Lunn had sent letters to Anne Sullivan inquiring about her. Though she had plans to visit Schenectady, it was abandoned due to the illness of her teacher. That's all my engagements with socialism so far. But so many articles have been already written about Keller and her connection with socialism in both socialist press and also the capitalist press. Keller couldn't even complete reading a quarter of those articles. She wonders, then what will these newspapers do if she actively involved in writing about socialism? So now she moves into the major arguments in the text. She is actually responding towards some of the criticism against her appeared on some of the newspapers. So the question, how did Keller become a socialist? She replies by reading. The first book she read was H.G. Wells' New World for All. Her teacher, Anne Sullivan, recommended this book to her. And you know how Keller reads books? She needs someone to make the impression of the letters on her hand. Then she will understand the letter. Therefore, her reading is very slow and also it is limited. And also she has braille books which she can read by touching. One of the periodicals which she often requests her friend to communicate through her fingers was the National Socialist. Now, she particularly reacts against a news published on the Common Cause, which is also a newspaper, and she quotes the passage here. So, the criticism is that Miss Keller's teacher, Anne Sullivan, and her husband, John Macy, both are Marxist. So, Keller has a close association with them for the last 25 years. Therefore, it is not very surprising that Keller is also interested in such an ideology. So, here we understand how the society questions the agency of a disabled. So, Keller is here considered to be fully dependent, and she doesn't have her own independent self, therefore she is dependent upon others. Her decision to be a socialist, that has also been considered to be injected by her teacher and her husband. However, Keller says that Mr. Macy may be a Marxist, but he did not propagate such ideology to Keller through fingers on her hand. Her teacher, Anne Sullivan, Mr. Macy's wife, she is neither a Marxist nor a socialist. Therefore, whatever the common cause criticizes, that is wrong. Now we consider another quotation from the same article, right? The title reads, Shenigdadi Reds are advertising using Helen Keller, the blind girl, to gain sympathy. Shenigdadi, I told you, it's a place in New York, America, and Reds are the socialists. So, the socialists in that city, they use Helen Keller to be a symbol in order to gain sympathy of the readers. The article continues saying, the socialists in Shenigdadi, they exploit, the word is very important, they exploit Keller for the publicity and offering her a seat in the Board of Public Health in Shenigdadi. They actually use her as an emblem to propagate their ideologies. Keller says that this is hypocrisy for a capitalist newspaper to talk about exploitation. Now, she tells us the fact of the news. So, when Mayor Lunn, he is the mayor in Shenigdadi, so when he learned that Keller is coming to the city, he asked the members to offer her a seat in the Board of Public Health. However, this news has not been printed on his own newspaper, Mayor Lunn's newspaper, the socialist newspaper, The Citizen. But the capitalist newspapers, they knew about this plan and they have published it. So, the exploitation has been done by the capitalist newspaper, not by the socialist newspaper. Of course, some of the socialist newspapers also published the news, but that was only after made it public. Still, the Citizen, Mayor Lunn's paper, did not publish a word about it. Once, the editor of the New York Times requested Keller to write an article for them, and also they asked her to prepare a list of actions she will take as a member of the Board of Public Committee. Anyway, Heller did not mind the offer. Some days after, the New York Times published an article criticizing the socialist movements. The article was titled The Contemptible Red Flag. The article says that the red flag, it is a symbol of anarchy. It is a symbol of lawlessness. Therefore, it is something obscene. The one who carries the red flag is therefore to be regarded with suspicion. He or she is not deserving sympathy. Keller says that she has a red flag with her and she would like, if possible, she would like to march with it in front of the New York Times. Then they will get the photograph. According to the newspaper, she doesn't deserve sympathy and she is something bad and stands for lawlessness and anarchy. So see, how could this newspaper ask her for an article? That itself reveals nothing but the hypocrisy of the newspaper. Anyway, Keller doesn't have any dislike against all the newspaper. She knows many newspaper men and a few of them are close friend to her as well. And also, newspaper was a great support for her for the charity program for the blind. But however, when she talks about socialism, that is a different matter, because the main funders behind all this newspaper, they do not like socialism, they are capitalist. If you are so submissive to an oppressive system, you can survive. If you question it, you will be considered an outcast. This is what happens to Keller as well. Being a blind and also a deaf person, she is the recipient of charity like many others. And there are other powerful people to contribute charity for the welfare of disabled people and also others. But if you question this power structure and the exploitation, then that's a different matter. The Brooklyn Eagle, another capitalist newspaper, says that Keller's comments come out of her ignorance. Some years ago, the same editor of the newspaper met Keller in a different occasion and appreciated her for her efforts. And that was so generous comments he made at that point of time. But now, when she talks about or supports socialism, the editor reacts very violently. He consider it to be her inability resulting out of her blindness and also deafness. In short, it is an ignorance that is part of her disability. That's a very sharp criticism against her. So Keller says that it is ridiculous from the part of a newspaper like Brooklyn Eagle to personally attack. They can engage in healthy debate. They can even suggest some of the valid arguments to break the claims raised by Keller or any other socialist. But it is ridiculous to talk about or to remind Keller or the entire society on her disability. And therefore, she says that if she gets an opportunity, if she accomplishes her dream to write a book, she will name it to be Industrial Blindness and Social Deafness.